It's Mark and Pete on the UK general election.
You're joking. Not another one? Oh, for God's sake, I can't stand this. There's too much politics going on at the moment. Why does she need to do it?
Hello and welcome to the show. Colourful conversations with Mark and Pete. Yes, each week Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark debate a topical topic. Well, once again, we are now, as a nation in the United Kingdom, going back to the polls. Theresa May has called a snap election for the 8th of June 2017. My goodness. And here with me at the moment is a weary clergyman, Pete, who has been marking X's all over the place. In fact, he loves elections. His X's are now kissing away the nation's fortunes goodbye. Well, clergyman Pete, please explain to me why on earth Theresa May called a snap election. What is it they're not telling us?
Well, the unfathomable wisdom of Theresa May has risen to the surface. It's interesting. My reaction, as you were saying, is, yay, another election. I love elections. We are Mark and Pete love to talk about all these machinations and the gameplay of it. The actual results, with some of the stupid things politicians do, is not always that good, but the election itself is good. Poor old Brenda there being interviewed by the BBC TV presenter.
The weary public.
Was that clip you heard right at the start of the episode? And she said, oh no, not another one. Well, I understand that reaction because it's not that long ago. It's only 2 years since the general election, but there was the referendum last summer, and then the council elections along with it. So it's been there's been a bit of a glut of elections. You wait for an election to come along, and then the three come at once. It seems like, and the reasons behind the reasons behind why Theresa May called this election are interesting, and it seems to me that she planned it very methodically. Not that she knew she was definitely going to go ahead with it. I think it depended on the polling, but that she was planned and ready to go should the polling show that they had a large lead. I don't know what her limits were, but with the lead of the Tories over their various rivals, Labour, being over 20 points, 20 percentage points, that's got to show that this could be a historic landslide. I mean, you should be looking at this. Look, we can make inroads into the north of England. We might even get a couple of seats in Scotland. This is going to change everything. I mean, and if I get a big enough majority, I don't have to worry about what a lot of the pesky MPs keep trying to say to me. So, it's a power grab.
Well, indeed. I'm glad you said that. Well, the fact of the matter is that many people are questioning this judgment on a number of points, partly for the fact that it was put to Theresa May last year and indeed this year continually, will you call a general election, Mrs. May? And continually she always denied that the time wasn't right. Well, of course, when is ever the time right? Well, of course, it's not so much about the timing. It's more about the trust element. It seems like that she's reneging continually on promises. And I think this is part of the problem. Will she do certain things? Will she do something else? And I think this is where it's getting a little bit weary. Not just the fact that we're having elections, but the fact that, well, can we even trust Theresa May? Well, I'm going to sort of question this in a simple little poem, which is called Come What May, or possibly June. Theresa May just simply might when others often would. As others did and always do, then perhaps so she should. Will she, won't she, when she decides, depending on how the vote divides? Can she, can't she ever keep it straight? Well, we will all just have to wait. Should she, shall she, would she show where the hell she's going to go? The devil may care, as she may be the devil, but now is the time to speak on the level. Indecision here is not in dispute, for every quip she will refute. Mrs. May may make a moment's remark, at least to give us some ballpark. Each political answer is more or less. The simple truth is hard to guess. Ballots, Brexit, big boom or bust. Who now can we really trust? Too much tit for tat and tormenting Tory talk. Cut the codswallop and squash the squawk. So who will be elected and take top spot? Of course, Theresa May. Or maybe not. So the question, of course, is, has she made the right call? And the reason I say this is because when we look at, of course, the opposition, many people would think that, yes, Jeremy Corbyn is an easy candidate to quash into the ground and to cut the Labour's number of MPs and as you mentioned earlier, to increase her majority. But ironically, there are a few worries here in the Tory camp, partly because it's been intimated that the Tories might start to increase taxes. Not a good vote winner, I can assure you. And at the same time, momentum is something that often goes in favour of a candidate. So, for example, whilst we know that perhaps politically Jeremy Corbyn is not seen as a great leader, not only just for his own party, but for the nation, it might just open the door for him to actually gain ground. So, this is always going to be a big issue here, is that has she made the right call? Now, at the moment, a lot of the newspapers are saying, well, Theresa May is actually increasing her populist vote. And in fact, current polls, because we know how well polls go, just look at elections around America and many other places in the world. When we actually sort of even consider how polls are judging things, it suggests that she will have an increased majority. But that was the same situation when David Cameron was Prime Minister last year going into the referendum. And it looked for almost certainty that he was going to keep Britain in Europe. So let's have a look at why potentially that Theresa May may not win. Now, let's be honest. How many people really want to have their taxes increased? So that's a vote loser, isn't it? What do you think?
I think that never works with people's understanding. The idea of claiming that the Tories are going to increase taxes might work, but no one really believes that Labour is going to reduce them. So I just don't think that that's a problem for them. I think that the issues with Corbyn are insurmountable. I think that even if he's personally popular amongst Labour supporters, which unaccountably he seems to be, the stupidity of his policies and understanding of economics just means he just does not seem credible as any sort of leader. I mean, I wouldn't have him as treasurer of the local church. I certainly wouldn't want him in charge of the country. I mean, he's just has no credibility. I mean, someone's pointed out actually
another big issue.
Yeah, and also defence. Yeah, he is. I mean, from the time that he said, "I will not press the button." I mean, there was a lot.
Nuclear weapons is what we're talking
a lot
about
made of May, Theresa May, saying that she would. If asked, you say, would you use nuclear weapons? Press the button. I don't know whether there's a physical button. I think it's actually a code that you put in. But if that is the case, that she said that she will do it, which apparently she did, of course you've got to say that. Otherwise, there's no point having them. And Corbyn has said that he's never going to. So if you're never going to do it, there's no point having them. But what was my point of listing those different criteria for judging someone as being not credible was, I think you're going back to Michael Foot to find a Labour leader who's less credible. And Michael Foot, who put his
that was for our international listeners, I think in the early 80s. That was
just someone with the same sort of views as Jeremy Corbyn, and also looking about as polished and professional. But the difference was Michael Foot was an intelligent guy. He was, respected academically. Corbyn is none of those things, and I think that they're in a worse position than with Michael Foot.
Interesting you say that, just to compound the point that disorganized Labour is one of the headlines. So in the Times, an interview with the Labour insider, Mr. Corbyn's former communications and strategy advisor, Harry Fletcher, said in a paper, he said that the Labour leader struggles to cope with the demands of frontline politics, saying the atmosphere in his office is fraught, tense and unhappy. Well, I guess that may be the case.
Yeah.
But I think that let's come back to some of the other things that could shape things. So whilst we're talking about the Labour Party, what about the UKIP? This is where originally, of course, Nigel Farage paved the way for a party to stand for a particular cause, Brexit. Of course, he's got that. But of course, obviously now, do you think that UKIP, is this now given them a more of a purpose, perhaps?
Yes, well, I do. I think now we've got Paul Nutty Nuttall as the leader. Now he has some sort of credibility. He says some reasonable things, but he's not got the big personality of Nigel Farage. And he's not been in place very long, and the party's in a bit of disarray. Not his fault, but because of the way that he was appointed. That there was someone appointed as leader who then stepped down, and he ended up getting the role in the end. So it was a messy process with people getting into factions over who they supported. Now, so he's had those issues, and I think the UK would just have faded into the distance. They would not have been doing very well at the next general election if it had been in 2020. But now, Europe is still the big topic. That's their that's their main.
I do want to bring this up.
It's on.
I do want to bring
it's
this
on
up.
their. It's on their part of the pitch. It's their. That's how Paul Nuttall put it. It was on their ground. Yeah.
Let me raise one of the things we mentioned. What they're not telling you. I think that one of the reasons why that Theresa May called the election, and not the only reason, but one of the fundamental reasons, was Donald Tusk. And the reason being is it was predicted, if you think of where we are now, Brexit's already happened. Article 50 has already been activated. Now, 2 years of negotiation is obviously going to be fraught with issues. Theresa May potentially perceived that Donald Tusk and, in fact, the European Union would possibly make some of the negotiations very, very difficult. That would take it very, very close to what would have been 2020 election. And one of the things that Theresa May, I think, and particularly a lot of her close advisors, has said, going into an election with some troubled discussions to effectively extricate Britain from Europe could actually cause her more angst at the polls.
Yes.
So I think that one of the reasons why she, not the only reason, but one of the things that hasn't really been highlighted too much, but I think is definitely in their consideration, was basically to say, if I can have a clear mandate beyond 2020, effectively taking it to 2022, then what that would mean is that she would override anything that might come from Donald Tusk and his cronies. And I think that probably is a smart move. So this is a more of a strategic reason why calling it now, as risky as it could be, is one of the factors that sort of pushed the button to say, okay, we're going to go for it now. Give me 5 years, which we would have, with, in theory, a clearer majority, being a stronger party to negotiate and not be held to ransom over some bureaucrat in Europe.
Yeah, yes, no, old Donald Tusk, who seems the archetypal grey, boring Eurocrat. They call them, don't they? A bureaucrat in Europe. He tweeted in response to the decision of the UK to hold an election. In quite a clever tweet, which makes me either reevaluate him or be impressed with his social media manager. But he says it was Hitchcock who directed Brexit. First an earthquake, and the tension rises. Because Hitchcock, the director, famously said a good movie should start with an earthquake, and then the tension rises. That was his point. That's his approach to filmmaking. So that's quite a good look. I like it. Well done, Donald.
It's probably the only good thing that he has.
Yeah, but he was an interesting figure. He cut an interesting figure when he was handed the letter, the Article 50 letter, because they took a picture of it and they didn't allow filming of it. But people took several pictures. So you have the picture of him being handed the letter, and then the picture of him standing there looking like a little child being scolded, and then the British emissary striding away purposely and rather cheerfully. And it just he just looked a bit pathetic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then when he spoke about it afterwards, he was saying about it wasn't it is not a happy occasion or something.
No, that's right.
It was as though he just been through a divorce, which I guess it is like that.
Yes.
Now, it's interesting to note that Donald Tusk does seem to see the general election as being a bad thing then for his negotiation from this.
Well,
reaction.
I think this is the point. This is my point, which is why I think that what they're not telling you folks, which is that actually behind the scenes, although there is a lot of domestic, subjects that are very relevant to why it's important to have an election now, but I think the bigger picture and the more strategic reasons are really around Europe. And I think that there is going to be a lot of battling, a lot of political angst, a lot of confrontation, shall we say, that I think is going to be dirty. I think there's going to be some dirty dealings, and I think that this is where I think Theresa May and her cabinet probably thought, we don't really want to go and have that mud on us as we go into a 2020 election.
I think that's exactly it, and I think that's what isn't being told. What is being told to people by a lot of the mainstream media, and questions are being asked by the presenters of the mainstream media shows to people, including Theresa May, about the internal workings of the Tory party, specifically that they appear to believe that the reason she called this election was to control the Brexiteers, as they call them, the people who I would say actually understood what we were voting for in the referendum, or aren't trying to pretend that it was something else, so you can keep membership of the EU and call it something else, which a lot of people are trying to do. They're trying to remain member of this single market, which no, that's part of the EU. Let's get out. Being a member of the single market includes free movement of people. That's one of the main things people voted against. That's just ridiculous. And so, because there's this bias, particularly in the BBC, but in other media as well, to be pro-EU, pro-membership of the EU, not EMU. That was something entirely different. Thank you, Rod Hull fans. But the thing is that if that were the case, if she was doing it in order to have a big majority so that she didn't have to rely on the votes of the Brexiteers, then she didn't need to, because there aren't enough of them.
Well,
it doesn't. What makes more sense is her claim that lots of MPs in Parliament and the House of Lords were against leaving the EU in the first place and were trying to hamper the negotiations. And she would have to take changes in the law to the House in order to successfully leave it. And if they're going to just just spoil the decision making by voting against everything, then if she's got a big enough majority and people vote with along party lines, that is more convenient. But I take your point. I think that the main thing is the timing.
Well,
trying to not to have a 2020 election.
Well, there is that, where I think there's a couple of things that we just need to conclude on here, which is that the risk is another factor, which is to do with Europe. And I know that I'm sure this has been calculated, but as we know, the referendum was a very tight vote, and a lot of people did want to stay in Europe. Now, of course, for those people who still have that fresh in their minds, it's possible that whether they are Tory voters or not, might think actually this is an opportunity to get their own back and effectively have an anti sort of Brexit vote, although the irony is it's already in motion. But it is a risk, so people are a bit election weary, as we've already highlighted at the beginning of the show. But there is this point about trust. And I do want to sort of ask this from, I dare say, a moral point of view. Possibly you can even say even from a sort of a faith point of view, which is if you're going to have faith in politicians, you trust them to basically honour what they say. So just let me ask you from that point of view how some people might think, actually, yeah, I going into this election, who can I trust anymore? So possibly is there something from the Bible that we can learn here?
Well, I think when it comes to the Bible, yes, the Bible does absolutely teach that you should be truthful. And I think that Theresa May
Are you listening, politicians?
has shown, along with other politicians, a willingness to simply not tell the truth. We don't know to the extent that she was lying. Had she been deliberately planning all along to do this, or is it just a recent thing? But as recently as last month, she was saying, no, there won't be an election till 2020. So it does seem that she was being less than truthful. Daniel chapter 2, verse 21 says, of God, he changes the times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. So the teaching of the Bible is, yes, you should be truthful. But even with our untruthful politicians, we can still have good coming out of it. In the end, God is in overall charge. So in your calculation of who to vote for, I don't think it's just simply who told a lie on this specific occasion. It's the overall sense of the wisdom. In other words, do they know what they're doing? Are their policies the right ones for the country? That's what you should make your decision on, not whether you're annoyed that you were lied to on a particular occasion.
Yes. Well, listeners, I know that a lot of you are going to be frustrated about this subject, and I'm sure you'll vent your anger, and there will be more debate over the weeks to come. But remember that date. That's the 8th of June, 2017, when we will go into the election one more time. So with these final thoughts, look out, future. Here we go again. The past seemed so much simpler then. Remember when politicians were only men? Now a woman is ruling number 10. Grab your ballot and a poison pen. Take your aim and just say when. Yes, so join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.